what was your way to directing movies? You started as a musician, so how do you become a filmmaker?
I studied music first, and that gave me some kind of structural brain sort of format, if you like. If you begin your academic life as, say, studying computers or history or physics or mathematics, you create a system in your head, and when you look at another system, or you kind of go, okay, can I apply physics to this, or can I apply mathematical logic to this, which you can. And because music has all of those things, most film has just one part, just the melody line, you know, and then afterwards you add all the other things. But I found immediately I was much more interested in how can you make a film where already these different levels are existing. Quite through an organic process, I joined a theatre group as a musician, and then quite naturally started doing performance and music. And then in that 10-15 year period, I was experimenting all the time with different techniques, a lot with sound, not just music but sound. And then I started to make small films to use on the stage as live performance. At first, no ambition to be a film director, just an ambition to use film because it was interesting. Then I made a film, and that film got good reception in the newspapers and from the critics. So I made my first film, Stormy Monday, which was kind of critically was not a success in the United Kingdom, but had a very good reception in America. And then, because I couldn't get more work in England, I went to Los Angeles.
I liked it a lot in Timecode, like you did yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like jamming, really.
Yeah.
You put that sound just when you are on a live show.
Yeah.
That's a great concept, I think.
I found a system where you didn't finish the film. That finishing the film was something you did with the audience, like a theatre show. So if you're making theatre or music, you make a preparation, but the crucial time comes when the audience is there and you're with the audience, and then you kind of go, what kind of an audience is it? What kind of a show am I going to do? Even if it's a play, you make thousands of small adjustments to the audience. With film, you make the film, you finish it, and then it doesn't matter what the audience is. The film isn't going to change. It is a piece of something that is fixed. And in a way, I always found that frustrating.
Next question. What do you think about film school? So you never visited one?
I tried to go to film school. When I decided to make a transition to film, I thought I need to learn, I need to go back to school. We have a good film school in the United Kingdom, the National Film School, which started, I think, in the 70s. So it had a very good reputation for new filmmakers, you know. And I thought, oh, this sounds like a good place for me to go. And I was confident. After all, I'd been working in very good theatre. I'm sure I'm going to get in. I went to the interview, and it was a disaster, a complete disaster, and I didn't get in. I had a huge fight with the guy who was interviewing me, who was very arrogant, and so I think I became very arrogant also. Like, I thought, why are they being so aggressive, you know? And I realized at that time that they were very suspicious of theatre, of the avant-garde also. And the first time I realized, actually, film is very conservative. And the last thing they said to me when I was leaving was, if you don't get into the film school, what are you going to do? And I went, I'm going to make a film. And they went, but you just said you didn't even know how to use a camera. And I went, it can't be so difficult, you know. So then I got, I think, £6,000, which is about maybe 80,000 now or something. By anybody's standards, it's not a lot of money. I managed, with that money, to pay for the camera woman, one sound recordist, 3 actors. I was one of the actors, and I think 5 days to shoot. And I made the film in the house where I used to live with my parents in the country. And I had to learn editing because I didn't have an editor, and so it was, in a way, it was my film school, having no choice, and also because I was spending someone's money, so there was a kind of a responsibility to not fuck up, you know. I couldn't do it like a student film. I had to do something that was as good as I could do it, you know. So that was my first film. And then I bought a camera, 16mm Arriflex ST, very old camera, and I started shooting on 16. I built my own editing table with just winders and a little synchronizer, you know. It was okay, it worked, you know.
What do you think do young people need to make films? Is it just the will?
Well, you know, I would say categorically it's no longer the problem of equipment. Anybody can get a camera. It's not so expensive. You can use old tape. Before you had to pay for 16mm film, that was a problem because it is expensive. And processing is expensive and printing was expensive. You know, we know that you can make a film, edit it on your laptop, make a tape from that, make a DVD, and you don't need to go anywhere, you know. The problem now, as you say, is actually, can you do it? Do you have the mentality, really? It looks so easy, doesn't it? You know, you see a film and kind of go, it looks easy, you know. And then I remember when I first started, like, you shoot something and then you try and edit it together and you go, oh my God, it's horrible, you know. And I guess the people that end up making films are the ones that are just so determined to just keep going, you know. And I do think it gets harder now because it's easy. There's a contradiction, but it becomes harder because anybody can make a feature film, which is sort of terrifying, you know.
What are the skills a director should have to make good movies?
Organization, the ability to be a catalyst for a group of people, and the ability to lead a group of people and create an energy which is positive, not negative, and the responsibility to try and understand every part of filmmaking, just so that when you're making the film, you know what you're asking people to do. But the most important skill is the people skill. Can you work with 10 people and make them happy, you know?
Is it hard to take all the risks to develop new types of storytelling?
Well, you know, everything's an organic process, so you need to get your confidence first, that it becomes something that, it doesn't make you nervous anymore. Once you understand it and you can relax a little bit on the technical side, then you can start pushing and taking risks, you know. And at that point, taking a risk becomes very enjoyable, you know. I mean, you get more pleasure from taking a risk than from doing the same thing, you know.
What are the reasons why most of the movies that are made nowadays are not daring?
Very simple. It's because to make a good film, you have to trust the director, the filmmaker, to make that film. It's, at the end of the day, it's the vision of one person, you know? And in the studio system, it's not the vision of one person, it's the vision of many, 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 many executives, mainly, and people who run the studio. So the films are being made by studios now, not directors. It's wrong. It's, I think, as simple as that.
Which of your movies is perfect?
None. None.
What are your favorite directors? What did you learn from them?
My favorite director is Jean-Luc Godard. For two reasons. One, most of the films that he made, I admire for their daring and their intellectual depth and their humor and their use of music and so on. I think he's a genius. But I'd maybe admire him the most for what he says about filmmaking, that his understanding of the relationship between the artist, the product, and the result. And then, of course, there are maybe 100 other directors that, maybe not 100, maybe 10. Robert Altman, Fellini, Renoir. Maybe there's more than 10, you know. You know, they're cliches, they are, but for a reason. Hitchcock, you know, John Huston, you know, Cassavetes, all for different reasons. You know, Cassavetes, you look at and you admire him because he had the ability to make an ensemble and create an improvisation style that was very unique.
Concerning camera work, what aspects are important to make good decisions?
I'll make it simple. Always ask the question, why am I moving the camera? And if you just do that, then it'll be okay. And if you haven't got a good answer, why am I moving the camera? If the answer is I don't know, then don't move it. Put it on a tripod, you know?